All right, so now comes my biggest, feedback to you. Killer feature that is something that's really good to have in your project. And again, the art here is you have to do a one-line description of the entire thing. The one-line description here being all of these 4 or 5 questions can be answered right away here because they are going to ask you 40% of your questions are just going to be on your resume. Hi everyone and welcome to this brand new series called Resume Reviews by Edist. In these sessions, we take resume submissions from you and review them for free. We've already got an overwhelming number of submissions for our first session, so I'm just going to be taking 3 random resumes and reviewing them. And hopefully the lessons that you learn from these are applicable to everybody out there. Before going ahead, just a small request, do like this video if you want us to do more of these sessions and subscribe to this channel if you want to receive more such content in the future. And if you want your resume reviewed, make sure you check out the link in the description below along with all of the other courses that we are running as well. So without further delay, let's get started and pick up the first resume to be reviewed. And let me take this one. All right, so I hope it's visible. Awesome. So as you can see, we've already blacked out all of the parts of the personal details so that that's not readily visible to all of you. Obviously it's a public platform, so I'm just going to go through it one by one, and if you guys are taking notes, it'll be good. So I'm just going to give a bunch of random pointers and random notes on what can be improved over here. So my first impression overall is that it's a good format. I generally like these 2-column formats because they allow you to put in a lot more details. So if you just have a look at it, it's a proper 2-column thing. And I've noticed that 1-column formats are also there in a lot of students, and that's fine as well. So there's no issues in 1 column, but it's just generally space wise it's much easier to do a 2-column format, or rather much easier to fit in information in the 2-column format. Since most of these resumes are by freshers, so having your education information here is good as well. Now, if you've already done internships and a project, then I would recommend that you put your internship and project experience first, simply because in today's day and age, it's that's very much valued. Companies really like somebody who's been there, done that. So if you've done like projects as well as internships, putting that above your education is also fine. Coming to the education part, so this person is a BTech in IT, and they've done, so they mentioned the school details and their grades there, and that's fine. 10 on 10 in 10, that's actually very good. 95 in 12th and 8.46. So some of you guys might say that do we even need to mention the school details? Well, here in this case, it's a good thing that this person has mentioned the school details because the grades are really good. If your school grades are not that great, you can also skip putting it if you need to. And CGPA is also fine, 8.46 on 10, so that's good as well. My one thing already that I'm facing here is that this is grayed out. Like, I don't like that you're graying this, because more than probably the name of the school, the percentage here is kind of important. Especially so college, I know you've put it in black, but this should be not be in gray, it should be in black. That's better, it's just more readable. For a machine, it won't make that much difference, and a lot of your resumes are going to be analyzed by machines themselves. But more from a perspective of the interviewer, or if a human is reading it, then so graying is not the best thing over here. Probably put it in black. Otherwise, all good. I like that you've mentioned the dates as well. A lot of students miss the date, so that's good. All right, so now comes my biggest feedback to you would be the projects. See, as a fresher, especially going for engineering roles, your projects are the number one way that you can show anybody that you can adapt to their tech stack, or you've done something in tech that is very useful to them, right? So even if, let's say, your tech stack is not exactly matching the job description's tech stack, the fact that you've built something is a very good proof that you know it. So projects are super important, and displaying projects on your resume is again super important. But if I look at it as a reader, if I look at it, the projects are the least emphasized thing over here, meaning that it almost seems like you're trying to hide your projects. But trust me, you already have 2 projects, and in both those projects, it looks like you've used some latest technologies. You should not be hiding those projects. So for whatever reason, I'm getting that you're kind of trying to hide your project, but you shouldn't really be trying to hide them. Second thing is, when are these projects done? So I'm not getting a date over here about when those projects are done. You might as well done it in your first year, and you're applying right now in your fourth year. So I have no idea, when these projects are done, right? So like, for example, you're going to graduate in 2023. Who knows, you might have done these projects in school in 2017 or 16 or something. So I cannot tell that right now. So it'd be good if you can just show that. A killer feature that is something that's really good to have in your project is the GitHub repository. And again, I can see that you've used technologies Python, OpenCV, TensorFlow, and here HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Flask. You've used them. These can definitely be hosted on GitHub. And if you have your GitHub repository link, trust me, 90% of the interviewers are not even going to open and check it. But it gives such a big validation that yes, this person has done it and they're not bluffing. They actually have done it. You can go ahead on GitHub and check it. So highly recommend you to put any of your code on GitHub. That's a very good thing. And if you're putting it on GitHub, make sure there's a good README as well. And I'll do a separate session on GitHub altogether. So we'll discuss more over there. But yeah, I think you should definitely put it on GitHub. The fact that you've not put it on GitHub makes me a little skeptical about how you've actually done these projects. Now, the next part about the project, we're going to spend some time on projects because projects are the most important for freshers. So, and if you had an internship, that would be good as well. Okay, anyway, so coming back here. So your project is Gesture Aid, whatever you want to call it, a sign recognition application that that helps the deaf muted overcome the communication barrier. Okay. Good social thought, right? And I'm happy that you're creating a project which can somehow help society in some way. Two quick critical points here. Number one, just by reading that one line, I cannot tell if it's a web application, if it's a mobile application, if it's just a backend server, if it's just a React.js type project, like just a front end thing. I have no idea what it is, right? You for sure know what it is, right? You made the project, but as a reader, and I can ask anybody who's watching this video as well, can you all guess what it is actually? It says application, but it could be a web application, it could be a mobile application, for all we know it could be a TV application, right? So I can't really tell much what it is. So make sure you convey very quick. I don't even want like a detailed description, but just like 2 lines saying that a sign recognition mobile application. That's great. So I already know it's a mobile Android application, or cross-platform application, right? So I already know that it can run on Android and iOS. Tell me something about what it is, right? Remember, at this stage, as a fresher, I am more interested in what it is rather than what societal problem you're trying to solve. So it's a very noble thought that you're going to do a deaf muted sort of a solution. However, you have not actually implemented it. It's not in the market, as to my knowledge at least. So you're not doing it for the business sense. You're doing it to showcase your engineering skills. If that is the case, please mention what it is. Technologies you've used are Python, OpenCV, and TensorFlow. But how have you used them? So it's great that you used Python, OpenCV, and TensorFlow. If you've just done like import, TF from or import TensorFlow or whatever, that thing, that does not mean you've used TensorFlow. And again, the art here is you have to do a 1-line description of the entire thing. The 1-line description here being, it reads gestures of, I'm assuming again, this is what you're trying to say, it reads human gestures and converts that into a sign language, or converts that sign language into the human language or English language or whatever, right? Or it could be a regional language that you worked on. Again, mention that. It could be English, could be Hindi, could be Telugu, whatever it is, but you need to mention which language it converts into. So see, so many things are, opening up over here, and where exactly have you used it? So my guess here again is mostly you used OpenCV to capture the particular, hand gesture, and TensorFlow to translate that gesture into your language. But that's my guess. You've not mentioned that over there. And this entire thing can be mentioned in 1 line, which is capture the gesture with OpenCV and translate that into any particular language using TensorFlow. That's it. Just one line is needed. With that, I can understand more about what your project is doing. Otherwise, I'm just guessing. And you know where this comes in. The problem here comes in when you're sitting in an interview. My first 5 questions will exactly be this. Is it a mobile application? You'll say, no, it's a web application. Oh, okay. How exactly have you used OpenCV? How exactly have you used TensorFlow? Where is this hosted, right? All of these 4 or 5 questions can be answered right away here. And now you'll say, sir, but I want to answer those 4 questions, right? Why should I not answer those 4 questions? The point is, if you mention all of those information already over here in the resume, then you get better questions in the interview. And if you get better questions in the interview, you have better chances of actually succeeding in the interview. For example, if they ask you, can you tell me exactly how you implemented this, or what are the classes and objects, or what's your application architecture? Now that you cannot put in your resume, that you have to talk in an interview. But the interviewer will have a better impression of you because you described the application architecture. All other candidates would probably be describing how they imported TensorFlow, how OpenCV is used, which is good, but that could have anyways been described in the resume. So I hope you kind of get what I'm trying to say. Be a little bit more detailed so I know what it actually is, what it does, and more importantly, how the technologies have been used, right? Because you're an engineer at the end of the day, I want to know how you've used the technology. Okay, enough on that project, and going to InFinder. So again, in this InFinder project, please mention the date, would be really helpful. If you've done it as part of an internship or as a hackathon or somewhere, would be good if you can mention that. All right, here you mentioned a web application. Great, so you've mentioned that it's a web application. So a web application that displays the respective LinkedIn account when an email ID is entered. All right, so you know how I can do this? I can literally just go to linkedin.com/something, right? If I know the LinkedIn ID. So you've obviously done some engineering over here to make sure that from the email ID, I'm able to generate the LinkedIn ID. What have you done there? So this not really made it very clear. You've told what the application does, but you've not mentioned how you've used technology to do that. You've written a Flask script. I think you've written HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Flask. Great. You've written a Flask script. You've used a public API. You've done something of that sort, right? So again, in one line, if you can mention how you've done it, it's a good conversation starter for the interview. Remember everybody, this is one golden point for everyone. Your question paper for your interview, 30% of that question paper or 40% of that question paper is coming from your resume. Because they are going to ask you, 40% of your questions are just going to be on your resume. You can set your own question paper for your interview if you smartly write your project descriptions or any description on your resume. So make sure that you've written it in such a way that you already know the questions that are going to come across. And the questions now that you're going to get from these project descriptions are very basic questions. Basic questions means basic answers. Basic answers mean interviewer does not get good or does not think you are a great candidate. If you want to be a great candidate, you have to field or you have to get great questions from the interviewer. How will you get great questions from the interviewer? Put the kind of stuff in the resume so that you can get those great questions. Okay, so that's the art over there, and you can get better, and it's very simple to do also. It's not too difficult. But over here, so just coming back to InFinder again, web application that displays the respective LinkedIn account when an email is entered. I'm not understanding how you're doing this. And yeah, that's mainly it. And again, if it's a web application, I believe you can even host it, and instead of just mentioning the GitHub profile, also mention where somebody can actually try this project out. And you'll say, sir, it's not looking that great, I don't want to put it here. So spend some time and make it look great, right? So it's just HTML, CSS, make it look great. It's your project after all, so make it look good. All right, so that's about projects. I'm going to spend most time on that. Now let's come to the other stuff. So skills you mentioned, great. Programming languages, C, C++, Python, and Java, web, operating system, database technologies. This is fine. I think this is pretty standard. One major thing I'd say over here definitely is if you're mentioning some skills, you should be ready to answer almost any technical question that comes with those skills. And for example, they might just say, okay, you're good at Java. Can you explain multi-threading in Java? Right? You mentioned it as a skill. And similarly in Python, can you explain file reading, file writing in Python? And if you're not aware of those things, or if you should at least know some 2-3 lines about it. Otherwise, why did you mention it as a skill over here? Right? So if you just did a hello world sometime back in Python, don't mention it over here. But if you're really confident, then you can mention it. So HTML, CSS, PHP, Flask. So this is mainly good. One other thing I would suggest you to do is for every job role that you're applying for, make sure you check the job description. And sometimes you can even modify your skills based on the job description. I'll give you an example. Sometimes job descriptions have this requirement that it should be, you should have some experience in object-oriented programming concepts. Now, we know that Java has object-oriented programming concepts. but you've not mentioned that you're good at OOP, right? And why would you mention? Because you're just mentioning the programming languages. Now I'll tell you why you should mention it. Because many of these job descriptions and many of these hiring portals, they do an automatic screening of your resume, meaning a machine, just like how you use TensorFlow, somebody else is going to use that to look at your resume and figure out whether it has the keywords and does that match with your job description or not. So while you have mentioned Java or while you have mentioned Python, since you've not mentioned OOP concepts, your match will not be as strong as somebody who's mentioned Python, Java and OOP concepts, right? So these are small ways in which you can hack the system. Make sure you go through each job description, and don't, when you're doing mass applications, you're trying to apply to all the off-campus hiring portals and so on, make sure you check the job description of each of these jobs and see that what are some of these extra keywords that they have mentioned. If you know those keywords, modify your resume and put those keywords over there for that particular job role. So there's no hard and fast rule that it has to be one resume for all portals, right? You can create a separate resume for every job position that's out there. Cumbersome, I know, but you guys want a job and you want a job at a great company, these are just some tricks of how to do that. Okay, coming to certifications. Now certifications, I'll only say one issue that I can see right now, which is Python and SQL and HackerRank you mentioned. Great. Which year or from which date to which date? You could have probably done this at your school time, right? I don't know. And if that's the case, it's not really that valid anymore. Similarly, problem solving and HackerRank. Again, great, but done in 2005, 2006, 2025. It's all guessing right now. You should mention it. Data structures, algorithms in EDIST. Okay, great. Good to know that you've taken an EDIST course, but do mention from what date to what date you've done it, right? And and also most of these online platforms, including EDIST, will give you a public certificate. If you can put the link of that public certificate here, it's a bonus. It's not a required thing, but it's generally a good thing to do if you have it. Why not, right? Full stack web development in Udemy, again, same thing, put a date over there. One of the things is in full stack web development, what you could do, and this is another way of increasing your keywords, is mention what stack you've used over there. So for everything else like Python, SQL, problem solving, data structures, algorithms, those are self-explanatory. But when you talk about full stack web development, what stack were you probably in? You could have been, let's say, on a mean stack, a MERN stack. You could have been on something completely different. So it's just generally good if you can mention what stack you have used in this full stack web development in Udemy. Okay, going to your achievements. So also, if I just zoom out again, just to show you that the majority or the one that the interviewer is looking for is your projects, but your highlighted stuff seems to be all these other things, right? Which is honestly secondary. I'll give an example, right? If you stood among top 10 percentiles in some contest, secured some rank in TCS CodeVita, developed something at a Facebook developers club, these are good things, but these are participation things, right? These are participatory achievements, which is again good, but your primary thing you're going to be judged by is your projects. So now look at, as a reader, the difference. You're highlighting your participatory things, but the one that you're going to be judged by, which is your projects, is not really that highlighted. Okay, let's quickly come to your achievements over here. And yeah, I think I spent a lot of time on your resume, but hey, first one, so benefit is there. Okay, stood among top 10 percentile in D2C recruitables. Okay, superb. Mention the date, please. It could have again been in 2006, 2007. I don't know when this was done. Please mention it. And you don't even need to mention exactly, sir, it was the 31st of February 2022. I know there's no 31 February. I'm just giving an example. But you don't need to mention exact date as well. Just say in 2022, 2021. At least the year has to be known, so I can make a mental map of it. Secured AIR 2598, same thing over here. Developed a face, the same thing over here, meaning in the sense of put a date. Developed a face filter using Spark AR as a part of an event by Facebook Developers Club. So I know you would want to highlight the Facebook Developers Club part, but honestly, it's not that big an achievement. I mean, you can put it there, but all of these, remaining completed 30 days of Google Cloud, 4th in Gravitas, Code Run C conducted by VIT Vellore. I mean, it's all good, but none of these are going to be the make or break for you to actually get into a company. So keep it there. I'm just saying, but don't expect this to add too much weight. The major weightage is coming from this part over here. Finalist of Escape Rooms 2.0. This is not an achievement. I mean, if you're my assumption is this is those escape room games that people generally do. Not really an achievement. I mean, like I play FIFA a lot, but I would not put on my resume that I am my college FIFA champion or something. It's generally not something you'd want to put over here. Received General Proficiency Award for 2 consecutive years in schooling. Again, which 2 consecutive years? And at a college level, your school awards start to get outdated, so you can keep it there. It's a good thing. But even when I'm reading this, right, General Proficiency Award, I have no idea what General Proficiency Award means. Is it that you maintain 70% plus, 80% plus, 90% plus? And if it's for maintaining, let's say 70% plus, not that big of an achievement. If it's for maintaining, let's say 95% plus throughout your schooling years, now it's a great achievement. But I don't know that, so you have to mention that received General Proficiency Award for maintaining XYZ for 2 consecutive years. Which 2 consecutive years? Again, if you maintain this in your 5th and 6th grade, I'm not really that impressed by it, right? But if you maintained it, let's say in your 11th and 12th grade, yeah, now I'm slightly impressed at least. Again, my major impressions coming from the projects, but slightly impressed by that. So that's what I'd say. Activities shortlisted for interview in WE Talent Sprint program by Google. Again, A, I don't know the date, and B, generally being shortlisted for interviews, and I've noticed this with all of your activities here. Shortlisted for round 2, participated in Accenture, participated, reached round 2, participated. All are great. It means I am the first person to encourage everybody to go and participate in these things. First of all, mention a date in all of them. But secondly, none of these are honestly telling me too much, and there's not too much weightage of it. And so now if I just zoom out and look at your entire resume, 50% of it means like this right half is just about participating in some places, which again, great. I think many students don't even do this much. So first of all, mention the date. But secondly, you don't want to fill like half of your resume just by participation stuff. Especially, if you look at, some of these things, reached round 2 in Flipkart Grid 2.0. I mean, I don't even know what Flipkart Grid 2.0 is, right? And for WE Talent Sprint program by Google, shortlisted for interview. I mean, it's a great achievement to be shortlisted for interview, but not great enough that, you fill your entire resume with it. So what I would suggest you to do is pick 3 or 5, put them here. Remaining all of them, keep it if you want to, but they're not really doing you any favors. Same thing here, participate in interclass throw ball competition. Interclass, I mean, I go and play football every other day, right? Does not really add over here much, because there'll be thousands of people like you doing that. So pick the 4 or 5 most achievements that you're proud of, of this, the one that was the most difficult to do, and the one that the interviewer will probably understand which was the most difficult to do, right? And then put them over here. That would be more useful in my opinion, rather than listing out all of these over there. And then you'll say, but sir, my resume starts looking empty. Exactly. At this point, half of your resume is already filled by these filler things, meaning that the interviewer gets the impression that you're just trying to fill your resume. Instead, if you can get a 3rd project in, and you have a lot of time, you're going to graduate in 2023, get a 3rd project in, that is much better, and you remove like half of these achievements and activities. Keep the one that you're most proud of and remove half of these achievements activities. Positions of responsibility, you are, I think, the examiner. Again, like if I look very down and closely, then I come to know that you had a position of responsibility, that you're the examiner of something. This again could be in your achievements. You don't have to keep a positions of responsibility separate. It could just be in your achievement, and keep like 4. I think you might be proud of this, so keep like 4 or 5 of these achievements. Get one more project, and try to put more emphasis on the project. All of these are great. These are good things to have if you want to fill. If you have extra space, fill in some more, but try to fill in with your projects rather than with this. All right. So overall good. I would probably give this resume somewhere between 2 to 3. If I'm being generous, I will probably give you 3 on 5, simply because you're there. You're not like fully there. Actually, I'll go with 3 on 5 right now. I'm also just starting to give ratings, so let's see if I'm consistent with it. But yeah, 3 on 5 for this one, because I would not reject your resume. I'd be happy to at least call you to an interview. But if I'm being very selective and going for like product companies and so on, then there's a good chance your resume does get rejected. So that, try to get to a 4 on 5 or a 5 on 5 next time, right? So, but now I'll say 3 on 5. You're not below average as such. This is kind of average. So if I had to say like 2.5 to 3, so we'll stick to 3, being generous. Okay, so thank you so much for your submission. Hope this was useful to you, and for everybody else also, hope this was useful. I'm going to go for 2 more resumes, but if you liked what we have done so far, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button as well. Let us know in the comments as well if you disagree with my rating. If you have any doubts of what I had mentioned over here, please do let me know in the comments. Happy to help you over there. Okay, moving swiftly along to the next one. And again, we've blacked out most of the personal details. Let me just see if you're able to see everything. Yeah, all right. So personal details blacked out, and this person actually even has a, what is it called? I think an intro line or a header line. Okay, cool. So let's get into it. Okay, again, a 2-column approach. I like 2-column approaches, as I've said earlier, because it gives a good gives good real estate, in the sense good spacing and so on. All right, so just going into it, you also mentioned your education first. Although you have a bunch of work experience, so I'll get into each of the work experience as well, but I would actually put the work experience above the education, simply because you have work experience, so that's good, and you have a bunch of personal projects as well, so really happy to see that. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. So to obtain a responsible, challenging and rewarding position in an organization with an established track record, where my skills and abilities can be utilized for the better productivity of the organization. That's too long. It's very, very long, and honestly, it's not adding too much to your resume. If you can do without it, or if you want to specifically mention it, then mention a very specific objective over here. Mentioning this is a very generic one, like if I Google this exact term, I will get about 100 resumes as well. So don't put things just because you need to fill things, right? If you want to keep it, but now I'll tell you the drawback of keeping this. This is harmless. Nobody is going to object that you kept this. But in the off chance, on that 1%, again I'm telling you, 1% chance some interviewer wants to have fun with you, they will start doing this, and I'll tell you what they'll start doing. They'll start saying, to obtain a responsible, challenging and rewarding position. So whoever this is, what do you mean by responsible, challenging and rewarding? What's the difference between these three? Again, in an interview, do you really want to figure out what is the difference between these 3 words? Fair. On top of that, with an position in an organization with an established track record. So you will not join a startup, is it? Even if they pay you, let's say 30 lakhs per annum to join, you will not join a startup because it has no established track record. It's probably alive for a year or so, right? So would you not apply to any of these new startups? Let's say when Cred just started, within 6 months they reached out to you and say, hey, can you send your resume for recruitment? You will say, no, I want to go for an established track record company. Cred is just newly started, 6 months only. How can it be, right? So again, be very careful what you're saying, because I've had students, I was doing mock interviews for a startup. Rather, they were applying to a startup, and I was doing a mock interview, and I said, why do you want to work at this company? And this student actually responded saying that, sir, as you are a startup company, I know you will not have the resources, but I would like to try. You're almost insulting the startup by saying that, I know you are not that great, but I will come and try to help you anyways, right? It's a privilege you're getting a job. That's my opinion anyways. Anybody giving a job, it's a privilege, and you have to earn that privilege, and they have to earn the privilege of working with you as well. That's a separate story. But this established track record and all, I mean, harmless, nobody will object to it. That 1% chance an interviewer will come who wants to have fun with you, and they're going to go on this. But overall, this sentence itself is too long. So keep it if you want to, don't keep it if you don't want to, but I would really not recommend this at this point. You can just do without it, right? So that's one thing. I don't know if you've blacked out your other details, but I believe you could. Yeah, okay, so your LinkedIn stuff is there. Cool. So your LinkedIn profile and all is there. Obviously we blacked it out. That's a good thing to do. You kept your LinkedIn profile. I don't know if you kept your GitHub profile, but that's a good thing to do over there. Okay. BTech in CSC. Okay, superb. This is your graduation year, current CGPA, fine. Intermediate, okay, high school. All right, this is fair. I mean, nothing too out of the ordinary. Just again, if this could be bolded, I know it's not part of the format for it to be bolded, but that cannot be your excuse. So the format gave that to me. So apply at the format company, right? So that's not the case. Make it bigger. Your CGPA should show, because as an interviewer, I want to judge you based on that, right? So don't hide it, show it to me. And it's not a bad CGPA, it's quite a good CGPA. Not the best, but it's definitely above average of what I have seen. So you can make this a little bit bigger, and all of these as well. All right. Work experience. So web developer intern at a company called Education for All. You'd work from home. And you've been working, again, see, I have to start putting my magnifying glass here, from July to August 2021. Okay, great. Just a very small suggestion here, instead of doing 7/2021 to 8/2021, even if you do JUL 2021 to AUG 2021, just makes it more readable. That's all. But again, a very minor thing. The one I do have a problem with is this. You were working on something called as a course shop application. Like literally that person will have to get a magnifying glass to actually figure out what you've written here. So you've written a course shop application, and on that you have an achievement/tasks. Now that course shop app is the name of the project. Please don't hide it somewhere below like that. Keep it at a better font size. All right. Now, created a dynamic and interactive web-based application with features such as login, logout, sign up, user profile page, and many more. Very good. I learned how to organize and execute several projects at the same time. Okay. This second line is a little bit more filler than the first one. I like the first one. You mentioned it's a dynamic and interactive web-based. Dynamic word is kind of useless over here. I don't know what you mean by dynamic over here, because if you're talking about the technical dynamic term, almost all web apps are dynamic anyways these days. So there's no point in mentioning that. I would probably, if it's, did you mean to write responsive? That's a separate story. So if it's responsive, then mention responsive. So created dynamic and interactive, again, a little bit filler words. You could just say created a web-based application with features such as login, logout, sign up, user profile page, and many more. What you've not mentioned here is which part have you worked on. So as per your technologies used, it says HTML, CSS, Django, and SQLite. I'm assuming you worked on the full stack, both front end and back end. Mention that here. I would love to interview people who have done both front end and back end, right? If you have done that, then that's good. Like, you are a full stack person. I'm very happy with that. So please mention that over here, that what exactly you've done. So the next line, I would say, I learned how to organize, cut that line. Rather, you should write over that I worked specifically on the front end, or I worked both on the front end and back end. On the front end, I translated the mockups to actual HTML, CSS code, and on the front end, I did that, and on the back end, I used Django and SQLite to set up the models, create the APIs as per the requirements, and deploy this entire app as well. If you've done all of those, if you've not done those, then mention the specific parts that you've done. But the more you write over there, because otherwise the next question in the interview is going to be literally this. Okay, great. You worked on course shop application. What was your specific role? Then you will say, I made the front end screens. Okay, how did you make the front end screens? Somebody gave me the mockups and I converted that into the HTML, CSS. All of that can be mentioned in one line over here, saving you 2 questions in the interview. 2 questions saved in the interview means 2 more better questions that you can answer. Otherwise, it's fine, but mention your specific role. That would be better. Web development and design intern at the Sparks Foundation. Payment gateway integration. Okay, again, this tiny microscopic, kind of font, not really helping you out over here. Okay. And I'm viewing this at 100% zoom, by the way. I'm not even zoomed out or whatever. I am viewing it at the same zoom level that everybody else is also going to view. So yeah. The Sparks Foundation, okay, again the same. If you can just mention June to July 2021, that's great. Developed a website that included a payment gateway, assisted me in expanding and improving my knowledge and skills, used HTML, CSS, and Razorpay payment gateway. Cool. So what I can understand is that you just did the payment integration over here. If that's the case, don't say that you developed a website. Okay. or if you did develop a website, mention what website is it. Is it a courses website? Is it a gaming website? Is it a food website? What exactly, what does this website do, right? So developed a website is like saying that I woke up in the morning. Okay, great. I mean, everybody does that, but what exactly does this website do? So developed a website that included a payment gateway. Fine, but I think where you are stuck is you just did the payment gateway part and you want to say that you developed the website. Don't say that. You can say that develop the payment gateway component in an already running food application if it's a food app, or courses application if it's a course app. Point is, you say that you created that particular payment gateway part, integrated Razorpay, and very specifically mention which APIs that you use of Razorpay. Razorpay has, as far as I know, the orders API is there, the subscription API is there. Mention that specific API that you've used, right? No harm in mentioning more details. So mention a few more details, so the person will ask you exactly that question, right? Which is, oh, okay, how did you use the orders API? Like, what is the major key, the payload in the orders API? Such a good conversation to have in the interview. So mention that, the more detail you mention, but again, not asking you to write an essay over here, but in one line, the amount of detail you can mention, the better quality questions you are going to get in your interview. All right. Used HTML, CSS, and Razorpay payment gateway. That's fine. Okay. This is pretty much okay to do. Again, for both of them, I know in both of them it might be difficult because it's a work experience in both of them to have a GitHub project or even have a deployable link, because again, these are work experience, meaning that it's somebody else's application altogether. Still, if possible, mention some place at least, the URL, if it's at all possible. Mention the URL of whatever you've developed there. Okay. All right, cool. Coming to skills, you mentioned Python, C, DBMS, HTML, CSS, DSA, leadership, MS Office. I preferred the previous resume where they kind of demarcated Python is there, programming languages, and then all of those separately. This is also fine. One thing I can see is you mentioned DBMS, so you not mentioned SQLite. You've mentioned Python, you've not mentioned Django, where you've actually worked in those things. So why rule it out, right? Mention the skills you actually have worked on. You've mentioned HTML/CSS, it's fine. Did you use a CSS framework? Did you use something like Bootstrap? Excuse me. Did you use something like Bootstrap? Did you use Tailwind? Did you use some CSS framework? Put it there. Can't do you any harm. MS Office, MS Office generally everybody puts, so it's okay. You can put or not put. Leadership, put if you need to, but then you're going to get a question on. Mention a time where you did some leadership, and just by saying I organized my class field trip where we all went to eat some pizza, that's not leadership, right? So at least like in the previous resume, at least somebody was holding some position of responsibility. That kind of a thing would still be kind of leadership, but otherwise mention if you need to, not really adding too much value over here at this point. You can also mention API integration here because you've done Razorpay payment gateway. You cannot, like up to you. If you feel comfortable mentioning that, do it. Okay, personal projects, Mario game using Python. Awesome. And I can notice suddenly this font is also lesser than this font. It's the whole readability is a little bit difficult in this resume at this point. So just letting you know. Anyways, so personal projects, it makes use of the Pygame library. It's a single player game in which the player Mario must avoid all the dragon's fireballs. Each level has new challenges and the area shrinks as the level progresses. A simple GUI is provided for the easy gameplay. Fair enough. I think you've described the project a lot here. Though good thing about Mario is almost everybody's played Mario, so you don't even need to mention in detail what Mario is about. That's one of the good things. Like when you talk about, let's say, created a food blogging application or a blog website, you don't need to mention what a blog is, right? A blog is a set of essays or posts that people generate. You don't need to mention any of that. So you can, if you want to make more space, you can avoid mentioning what this Mario game is about. And yeah, I think I would just be more curious to see a working demonstration of it. So if you have it on GitHub, great. If you have a video of the game being developed, great. Mention those here. Just gives proof to the interviewer or anybody else that you've actually created it. That's mainly it. Otherwise, I think you mentioned it well. A simple GUI is provided for easy gameplay. That's okay. And I think, yeah, nothing more that I would probably add to this. One thing you could kind of Yeah, okay. So one thing I would add here is how you went about developing it. Like Mario as a game is like complex enough in the sense that you use the fan art or just the art itself, right? The what do you call them? The I'm forgetting the name of them, but basically the icons of the game, right? So the graphics and so on, of the game. You have those. So what exactly did you do with those? Like how did you actually introduce them over here and so on? So that's one thing that you should probably be mentioning at this point over here. All right, let's go on to the next one, which is weather API. Okay, so weather APIs are application programming interfaces that enable you to access the massive weather forecast databases. This gives current weather conditions as well as the maximum and lowest temperature for a number of cities. Okay, great. That's what weather API does. And you might have used an existing weather API. But what is your project exactly? Again, is it a web app? Is it a mobile app? I don't really know. Again, and going back to the previous Mario game using Python, I would also mention that same thing. I don't really know if that GUI is on a mobile or if it's on a web. So, just kind of mention that as well. But yeah, weather APIs is not explanatory at all. Is it a web application? Do you enter a city and get the weather? Do you use voice commands, because some people are generating that? So I mentioned, let's say Mumbai or Delhi, and suddenly tells me the weather over there. Is it that? I can't really tell at this point, right? So you have to kind of describe what it is actually and what did you do. You could have just as well used an existing weather API out there to display the weather at some place. But again, which technologies have been used here? Is it an HTML CSS thing? Is it a mobile thing? Is it a command line thing? You need to mention that explicitly. I cannot even begin to understand what it actually is, or rather what medium you've used for that. So I'm not kind of getting that. Okay. So just moving on. So major feedback for the projects is that only more details, what it actually is, and how you could and how did you go about implementing it. Like that's just a one line on that would be great to see. Okay, achievements. Star CBM. Again, let's put those magnifying glasses on. Awarded a star performance in Campus Business Manager internship at PrepBytes. Okay, superb. Which year? What did you do in that, and which year? And awarded a star performer for what? Did they just do a star performer because you were the one who attended most meetings? Was because you sold the most number of courses? What's the scene? So mention exactly what you're trying to do, or why you are awarded the star performer, right? Star performer among how many? If there were only 2 interns at your campus and you're the star performer, not super impressive, right? But if you were like 1 out of the 50 or something, then that's great. So do mention that. HackerRank Gold Badge, earned HackerRank Gold Badge for C, Python and problem solving. Again, which year did you earn this in? Otherwise it's fine. Hacktoberfest 2021, rewarded for participating in Hacktoberfest 2021 by contributing to open source projects. Which open source projects? Mention the names of them. And if you think, sir, they're just very, very simple things, I just did it to get the t-shirt, okay, then is that even an achievement for you? So yeah, I mean, you can put it, but make sure you mention the open source projects as well. That would be a good thing, right? Languages, English, Hindi and German. The only reason I think you should keep this here is because in the languages you've mentioned German, which is a very uncommon thing for most students to have. So that's good. But this achievements and language section, first of all, languages you can do without. The only real thing that I can see in this languages part is that you know German, which is above and beyond the usual English, Hindi or English, any other regional language. So just to mention German, you've created this entire sort of a section. It's pretty much showing that it's filler, right? You're trying to fill things. And same thing with interests, web development, music, dance. Again, it's kind of showing like it's a filler. What I would rather do is expand your personal projects part, enter more details over there. I would love to have more details over there. You can even put more details here, increase the font size and so on, so that it's more readable. And the achievements part, if you could just make it like achievements, achievements / activities, or I think that's, or extracurricular if you want to say. So in achievements you can mention these 3, and then extracurricular probably you can mention German. So I mean, just to mention German, you're spending a lot of space here. That's what I'm trying to say. And interests you can kind of do without also. If you want to keep it, you keep it. You could keep German in interests, by the way. Speak fluent German. or speak elementary German, whatever you want to call it, and then love web development, love to listen to music and dance. That's something you can do. Yeah, so I think both, or like these two things can be combined into interests, and these achievements can be in one. And this could be further down and spend more time on your personal projects and your work experience. The score I would give you here is again 3 on 5. I would shortlist you for the for any interview round, but it could be much better. And like in the interview round, I would be a little bit skeptical because the personal projects don't really add up too much, so I'm not able to get too much out of it. So you still get shortlisted. For a product company you may not, but in general many companies you still get shortlisted, but there's a lot of room for improvement out there. Okay, cool. Hope that was helpful to you, in your resume review as well. If you liked it, please again let me know in the comments below. If you have any doubts, please do let me know. If you guys don't agree with some of my assessments, or you do agree and you want some more information, again let us all know in the comments below. Happy to respond to anything that you have out there. And okay, so then that leaves us with one final resume for the day. Let's get started in 1 second. Let me just get some water. All right, let's go to the next one. First, let me kind of just check the zoom and all of that. Okay, so it's all the zoom and all is fine. All right, so now we have a break from the 2 column to the 1 column. And generally when you're in a 1 column, it kind of shows confidence as well, because you know that within 1 column I have that much to talk about in each one of them, that I can still fit it in a 1 column thing. So again, there's no hard and fast rule. 2 columns is also fine, 1 column is fine, and sometimes you can fit in a lot in 2 columns as well and in 1 column. So actually that confidence point doesn't really make sense. I just said it, I don't know why, but yeah, it doesn't make too much sense actually. Okay, anyways, coming back over here, let's start with this one. So you mentioned your name, then you're as a software developer. Okay, cool. You can mention this, you can also not mention this, because I know you might be trying to mention that you're a software developer because you want to probably you may not have any reason to mention it, but some people like to keep it because it will be picked up by an applicant tracking system, or those automated systems of all these hiring portals. But then it also comes to, are you a software developer, or are you a backend developer, or are you a full stack developer, or are you an Android developer? You could be all of these things together. So mentioning this is not necessarily helping you in those hiring portals. You can keep it and you can remove it also. It's not at all that required. I'm just telling you that because you have an option so that you can work without it if you want to. Okay. All right, so BTech in IT, college is blanked out. Okay, fair enough. 2019 onwards, current CGPA 9.4. Okay, pretty cool. Good stuff over here. I think again, the font size and all is fine over here because your entire resume is kind of the same size, so it's okay. It's still readable, so I'm okay with that. Internships. Okay, so you mentioned your internships or your work experience before your projects. This is good. This is what I was talking about. So good stuff. Yeah, so I was just talking about this. So you put your internships before. That's great. Now, backend developer intern at some company. You mentioned the company's name, and you're still an intern there. So pretty cool. Creating, integrating, and managing databases. Which databases? Is it SQL databases? No SQL databases? Integrating quantum computing APIs, again super cool. Developing, maintaining, and deploying CMS software, building interfaces in React.js. Okay, I have no idea what this product is. You could have started by saying that I'm working on the XYZ main product of this company, because I've never heard of this company. Probably it's a very famous company and I could just be someone who's ignorant. That's fine. But if that's me, then you can expect the interviewer also to be ignorant of that company. So just letting you know out there. Mention working on so and so product, and specifically in the backend team, right? That would be good to know. Integrating quantum computing APIs. Which quantum computing APIs? Is it your own developed ones, the company's in-house ones? So then mention in-house. If it's outside ones, then mention the name of the quantum computing API. it'll be great. The interviewer will also get to learn something new. If they've never been in this domain, they can actually Google it, see that it's actually a real thing or you're just making it up. Right now, I'm kind of suspicious because I don't know if you're really doing it or not. If you mention what's the actual API that you're using, that would be great. Developing, maintaining and deploying the CMS software. Now look at this, like at one place you're talking about like quantum computing and the other one you're talking about CMS. So, so for those of you who don't know, CMS is content management system. So are you just maintaining like a blogging website, or are you, doing some fancy quantum computing stuff? You could be doing both. I'm not saying that that you have to do just one, but because you didn't mention what the product is, I'm kind of getting confused. Why are there two things over here? Building interfaces in React.js. Again, that's good, but what kind of interfaces? So like building interfaces like login, logout or /dashboards, that would be better. And you might say, no, I'm doing all sorts of things. See, you've been at this internship like October, November, December, Jan, Feb. So 5 months. So you cannot be doing tens of things over there, right? So you probably developed 3 or 4 interfaces. Tell me the types of interfaces you've developed. Again, not that what you've written is wrong. It's just that the quality of questions you get in the interview will be much, much better. Okay. Web development intern at the Kabadiwala. I also like that you mentioned the link of each of the company. So that is pretty cool, right? That you mentioned that. From Feb 2021 to May 2021, cool. Built various sections of the admin portal based on Razor pages of ASP.NET Core. Now this is good. Now I know exactly what you have used and which components you've used. So I like this description, which manages the company's revenue and other resources. Super. I kind of understood it. I don't say I understood the full business logic, but I got a good understanding or a decent understanding of what you've done. Documented the changes and migrated the project from an older version of the Bootstrap framework to a newer one. Just mention, is it Bootstrap 2 to Bootstrap 3? Just give an example. Just mention which Bootstrap to which Bootstrap. Just 0.5% improvement to this thing. Created dashboard for the basic analysis of the company's resources and revenue over a period using Blazor WebAssembly. Again, very self-explanatory, superb description. Worked on a Telecotter portal's design and converted the wireframe in pixel-perfect web pages using HTML and Bootstrap. Great. I mean, I understood everything you're doing at this web developer intern. So intern at this company. Similarly, just do it for the previous company. But I don't really have anything that I would suggest to change over here. It's all good, honestly. For others also, if you want to describe your internship, this is how I'd suggest you describe your internship. Because there are 4 quality points here. And all those quality points, I can ask a very pointed question, a very directed question as an interviewer to this, whoever's resume this is, right? So, good job. I like your resume, right? Especially this projects part. The internships part. So on top of that, your projects, PyBasic. So you're saying you made a programming language made in Python, created Lexer parser interpreter which supports basic syntax, conditions, expression statements using Python, and a little bit of assembly language. Again, kind of understood everything. Just make sure that you mention, is it a command line application? Did you create a web app which has this? Because there's a lot of, online compilers and so on. So I think most probably it's a command line application, a command line interface or whatever, but would just prefer you mention that over here. That would be really good. That's the only change I would say. And the date, I don't know when you've done this. So just mention the date over here. House party, music controller for group sessions. Made a room-based web app where one host takes control of the music being played on a single device and other hosts can join the room. Vote to skip the song or pause the song. Okay, understood. Use React.js to create the front end, Django REST for the backend, SQLite for the DB, Spotify API for the music control, and hosted where? Just that's the last part. Like otherwise you mentioned everything to the dot. Superb. I love it. Is it hosted anywhere? And if it's not hosted, then I can understand this, right? But honestly, if you've done this much, then just host it somewhere. Take a Heroku, instance, or put it on AWS if you have free credits. Just put it somewhere. This sounds like a great project. In fact, I'd love to guide EDIS students on how we can do a project like this. So if you guys are interested in a project like that, let me know in the comments below. We'll do a session on that. But really good project, really fun project. Mention the dates. And if you've done this much, just host it somewhere and mention the URL. Same thing for the previous one. Put it on GitHub somewhere so that people can just do it. Again, are all of these original and done by you? I'm not even talking about that. That's a separate story. But I'm assuming in good faith that you've done all of these by yourselves. And if you have, great projects. I mean, especially if I am hiring for Python Django people, you'd definitely get an interview quite easily with any company that's hiring for Python Django people that's there. Programming languages: Python, C++, JavaScript, C Sharp. Databases: Postgres, MongoDB. Web technologies: HTML, CSS, React, Django, ASP.NET. Tools: Git, Docker, Linux. Okay, you've done Docker as well. So if you've done Docker, I did not see anywhere in any of the projects where you've used Docker. Probably you just use Docker, with something else by your own. In which case, in your house party and even in a PyBasic, if you can Dockerize it and mention that you use Docker for that, that would be great also, especially for the house party one. Use Docker over there, and so now I know for sure that you use Docker in a project, right? And if you use Docker in one of the earlier workplaces, mention over there that you use Docker for something. But overall, very good resume. One slight thing, it's pretty much a great resume, but one slight thing that I would probably mention over here is there's no DSA that I can see. So I am getting the impression that you have not done any DSA, which is fine. But if you are applying for companies that have very DSA heavy rounds and interviews and so on, it may be to your disadvantage a little bit. So if you have done some DSA, do mention. I don't know if you've probably mentioned your HackerRank profile here or something. No, you've not, right? So if you're going for a DSA heavy company, the ones that take a lot of this competitive coding kind of challenges in the hiring round, may be at a disadvantage. So I don't know. I mean, if you know all this already, just go to HackerRank, do a problem solving thing, take an Edis DSA course, and put that certificate here, whichever one suits your suits you, or just generally compete on Codeforces and Lead Code or something, and put over here your rank or whatever. In case you're applying for a very DSA heavy company, it might come in handy. I'm again talking about a 5% chance. If you want to make it to perfection here. Otherwise, pretty good resume. For a fresher, I would even just rate this as 5-star. So I would give you a rating of 5, because there are some small improvements that I've suggested to you over there, but overall I'll say 5 because those are very minor improvements. And for a fresher, honestly, I've never seen or I've very rarely seen, I'm not never, but rarely seen this kind of a resume which has almost everything. So everyone else, if you want to take up something, this person, I don't know if it's a boy or girl, but they've done a really good job over here. And it's that simple. Again, you might be saying that, oh, this is 5-star. Yes, it is. Do the basics right and you get something like this. So good stuff. Definitely taking up your resume for an interview round, and pretty strong resume for you. All right. So that's pretty much it, everybody. Those are the 3 resumes I had to review, and those of you wondering, I took this entire thing in one shot. So I've been speaking for 57 minutes straight at this point, or whatever. I think after the edit it might come down. But hope you all had fun in this resume review session. If you guys enjoyed this, please let us know in the comments. We always do these things that are helpful to you, and we only know if it's helpful if you tell us it's helpful. So let us know in the comments below if you found this helpful. Hit the like button if you liked it. Share this with your friends so that they also can benefit. Subscribe to this channel, you know the drill. And if you want your resume reviewed, just sign up in the link in the description below. Happy to review your resume. We get a lot of requests, so we have to choose a few random resumes to do it. But I hope that our review of every of these kind of resumes helps you understand how to improve your own resume as well. So just because we're doing a few does not mean that you cannot benefit. You also can benefit a lot from this as well. All right, that's it from our side. Thank you so much for joining in today, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much, everybody.